This is the most powerful generative AI available today. Just a few hours ago, Anthropic announced Claude 3, an AI that can beat GPT-4 and Gemini. So, this is a full review of the new generative AI Claude 3 by Anthropic. And at the end, we will compare Claude 3, GPT-4, and Gemini Advanced. Claude 3 is a large language model, or LLM, similar to ChatGPT and Gemini. It was developed by Anthropic, an AI safety and research company founded by Dario Amodei, former vice president of research at OpenAI, and Daniela Amodei, Dario's sister with expertise in machine learning safety and security. Anthropic prioritizes creating AI that is reliable, steerable, follows instructions well, and less likely to produce harmful or misleading content. Claude 3 isn't just one AI, but several: Haiku, Sonnet, and Opus. Each successive model offers increasingly powerful performance. Opus and Sonnet are now available to use in Claude.ai, which is the chatbot we will return to later. The main reason for this separation is the price per million tokens. For example, Claude 3 Haiku costs 25 cents per million tokens for input and $1.25 for output. Claude 3 Sonnet costs $3 per million tokens for input and $15 for output. And Claude 3 Opus, the most powerful model, costs $15 per million tokens for input and $75 for output. So, if you want to use Claude's API for your own product, you may not need the full potential of the most powerful models, and thus, you can pay less. On the official Anthropic website, we can see a graph comparing the Claude 3 models with GPT-4 and Gemini in various aspects. Just look at it. Claude 3 Opus literally surpasses both GPT-4 and Gemini in all aspects. You can pause to take a closer look at the table. In some aspects, it is only a few percent, but in others, it is very significant. For example, in code, Opus surpasses GPT-4 by 17.9% and Gemini by 10.5%. Anthropic calls this a new standard for intelligence. Claude 3 models also have sophisticated vision capabilities on par with other leading models. They can process photos, diagrams, graphs, and technical diagrams. And here is a graph for comparison. It still surpasses GPT-4, but in some aspects it is equal to or slightly inferior to Gemini Ultra. Later, we will compare in practice whether this difference is noticeable. Opus, Sonnet, and Haiku are significantly less likely to refuse to answer prompts that border on the system's guardrails than previous generations of models. The graph shows a really big difference between the number of unnecessary refusals of previous models and Claude 3. Below is also information about the significant improvements of the Claude 3 models compared to the previous Claude 2.1. To see the power of Claude 3, check out this short video example.
In this video, we're going to see if Claude and a couple of friends can help us analyze the world economy in a matter of minutes. Okay, I've asked Claude 3 Opus, which is the largest model in Anthropic's new Claude 3 family, to look at the GDP trends for the US and write down a markdown table of what it sees. We've given Opus, and all the other models in the Claude 3 family, extensive training on tool use, and one of the major tools it's using is this web view tool. It goes to a URL, looks at what's on the page, and because it's multimodal, it can use the information on that page to solve complex problems. So here's the markdown, and it's important to note that Claude doesn't have direct access to these numbers. It's literally looking at this same browser you and I are seeing, looking at the trend line, and trying to estimate what the exact numbers are. Let's see how accurate it was. We've asked the model to create a plot of the data, and it's used this second tool, this Python interpreter, to write out the code and then render the image for us to check. And here's the image. Look, it's actually added helpful little tooltip animations to explain some of the major peaks and troughs in the last decade or two of the US economy. And we can compare that graph with the actual data, and it turns out it's pretty close. It's actually within 5% accuracy. And by the way, Claude's transcription here isn't just coming from its pre-existing knowledge of US GDP. We tried it with a large sample of made-up GDP graphs, and its transcription accuracy was within 11% on average.
They also say that Claude 3 Opus is our most intelligent model, with best-in-market performance on highly complex tasks. It can navigate open-ended prompts and sight-unseen scenarios with remarkable fluency and human-like understanding. Opus shows us the outer limits of what's possible with generative AI. Well, let's test it in action, and I'll show you how you can get access to Claude 3. On the official website, anthropic.com, you can build with Claude, which means using their API for your business, or try Claude 3 as a chat assistant by clicking on the Talk to Claude button, which is what we need. Or you can just go to the website claude.ai, which leads directly to the chat with Claude. So, here you have two options: continue with email or continue with Google. Then, after you confirm your phone number, enter your name, and agree to the acceptable use policy, you will be redirected to a page where you can start your chat with Claude. As far as I understand, you can use Claude 3 absolutely free of charge, as is done in ChatGPT, but you also have the option to purchase a paid subscription, which also costs $20 per month. One of the features of the paid subscription is the ability to switch between different Claude models. You will also get early access to new features and so on. So let's finally compare Claude 3, GPT-4, and Gemini Advanced by writing them several identical prompts. For comparison, I will use three main categories: coding, creativity, and problem solving. Let's start with coding ability. Using the following prompt, write a Python function that takes a list of numbers as input and returns a new list containing only the prime numbers from the original list. And to get the most accurate result, I will purchase a paid subscription so that I can choose the most powerful model, Claude 3 Opus. Well, let's compare which AI can handle the task faster. In this particular case, Gemini turned out to be the fastest, completing it in just 15 seconds. Then, GPT-4 completed it in 23 seconds, and Claude 3 completed it in 26 seconds. But if we look at the output, Claude 3 wrote the most detailed instructions, explaining each line and providing examples. Yes, Gemini also described the answer in quite some detail, but if you look at GPT-4, it did not explain the meaning of the individual functions and wrote the example in the same field as the code, which may not be very convenient. If you look at the code itself, I'm not a programmer and I don't really understand what's better in this case. But the code in Claude and GPT-4 looks almost identical, and they look a little cleaner than the one written by Gemini. So, let's check which AI can handle the creativity task better by writing the following prompt. Write a haiku about a cat discovering a hidden world beneath the garden shed. In this case, we will compare 3 points. Does the poem correctly follow the 5-7-5 syllable structure of a haiku? Does the poem use vivid language and sensory details? Does the poem present a unique and unexpected perspective? As you can see, the task was not too difficult, so each AI handled it well. All 3 haiku perfectly adhere to the 5-7-5 syllable structure. All 3 haiku use descriptive words and appeal to the senses, and each haiku presents a fresh and surprising insight into the cat's discovery from a slightly different angle, offering a delightful sense of exploration. However, in this particular example, Claude 3 was the fastest. And finally, let's check their problem-solving ability by writing the following rather difficult task. A farmer needs to transport a wolf, a goat, and a head of cabbage across a river. However, the farmer's boat can only hold the farmer and one other thing. The wolf cannot be left alone with the goat, and the goat cannot be left alone with the cabbage. How can the farmer get everything across the river without anything being eaten? You can pause the video and try to solve it yourself, and be sure to write the answer in the comments. Here's a quick answer before we check if our AI models can handle it. First, the farmer takes the goat across the river alone. Then the farmer returns alone. The farmer takes the wolf across the river. Then farmer returns with the goat, leaves the goat alone on this shore, and takes the cabbage across the river. Finally, the farmer returns for the goat and transports it to the other shore. Let's see if Claude 3, GPT-4, and Gemini can solve the problem. As you can see, each AI was able to solve this problem. However, there are some differences. GPT-4 gives a very short, dry answer, without any explanations. Gemini and Claude provide detailed explanations for each step and why it needs to be taken. Gemini was faster at solving the problem, but I liked the answer from Claude 3 the most. Please note that for these experiments, I used Claude 3 Opus, which is the most powerful but slowest model available. Therefore, in some cases it seems quite slow. But if you use Claude 3 Haiku, I am sure it will outperform Gemini in most tasks. That's all for today. Thank you very much for watching. If you found this video helpful, be sure to write about it in the comments and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss new videos. Peace.